enter into exploring the chakras or energy centers, which we've touched upon several times, of course, in other classes. The science of the centers is called Laya Yoga, Laya, and apparently it's an ancient science from the days of Atlantis that will be reinvigorated, reinstituted during the coming age of Aquarius. And the more you delve into the centers, the more intriguing, complex, and almost infinite you can see how the subject is and why it is a science, in fact, how much you have to learn. So this is just one perspective I'm offering today, from mainly gleaned from the Alice Bailey books. But you see many various explorations of the chakras, particularly in the Hindu system, which most of this pretty much derives from, although it's in the Buddhist system too. There's slight differences. And of course, you'll see many different artworks of what the chakras look like, and they're all quite evocative in their own way. Not necessarily correct, but I've tried to stick with the traditional Hindu ones, as I'll show you. So in the book, Telepathy and the Etheric Vehicle, there's a wonderful passage that I read to you. The magnetic interplay between centers of energy is the basis of all astronomical relationships between universes, solar systems, and planets. Bear in mind, however, that it is the consciousness aspect which renders the form magnetic, receptive, repudiating, and transmitting. This consciousness differs according to the nature of the entity which informs or works through a center, great or small. The life which pours through all centers and which animates the whole of space is the life of an entity. It is therefore the same light in all forms, limited in time and space by the intention, the wish, the form, and the quality of the indwelling consciousness. The types of consciousness are many and diverse, yet one life remains ever the same and indivisible, for it is the one life. So what the Tibetan's getting at here is we are the microcosm of the macrocosm, which he was mainly describing just here. Solar systems, planets, they are all chakras or energy centers in their own right. And going out towards galaxies and so forth, they are all energy centers as well that are linked to other energy centers, as we explained, I think, when discussing the 7 solar systems in one class and seeing our solar system as a whole, as the heart center of the one about whom naught may be said. So on the left here, we have a diagram from esoteric healing on the centers. And at the top here, we have the 1,000 petal lotus, Atma, or universal consciousness, the so-called heart center in the head. This is the 1,000 petal lotus that we visualize in our meditation every week, above the top of the head. And it is a synthesis, in fact, of all the lower centers, or any center below there. They're all synthesized in the heart and the head center. The Ajna center, of course, which is 2 petals of 48 petals each. The integrated personality consciousness. This, of course, on a greater scale, represents the new group of world servers that mediates between humanity and hierarchy. Each of those centers themselves also can be regarded as a chakra. Shambhala, hierarchy, humanity, and so forth, as we've gone through many times in the various classes. Then we come to the throat center, manas, or creative mind, and then to the heart center, which is the obverse or the down-pointing lotus, representing Buddhi or group consciousness. Buddhi being the the goal of our unfoldment of consciousness for humanity as a whole. Then there's the solar plexus center down here. The amount of petals in each of these lotuses aren't necessarily accurate. We'll go through the individual centers in a minute. So these three higher centers here, head, throat, and heart, represent the so-called three organs of the spiritual triad. These three lower centers, solar plexus, sacral center, and the base of the spine, are the three organs of the personality. And of course, we're all at different stages of evolutionary unfoldment, and all our centers, without exception, the entire population of the Earth, are at various stages of unfoldment. So a chakra, we have the head, ajna, throat, heart, solar plexus, sacral, and base. Energies work through the centers when healing, of course. All chakras have planetary rulerships, as we'll explore later, and we have touched upon this also in other tasks. The chakras work directly on the physical body through the medium of the endocrine system. The 7 endocrine glands that are associated with the 7 major chakras. And the etheric body, of course, is a network of interlaced threads, such as we see in this diagram to the right. You can't read all the words that are written there, but they explain various things, and you can see the centers going down the middle here. Basically, these centers are where those many threads cross and crisscross many times. They're like energy hubs, if you like. Many different ways to pictorially see the centers, such as this diagram here, that shows the interpenetration from the front and the back of the centers. The crown chakra above here, the third eye center and chakra. Third eye is not quite exactly the ajna center, but it's associated with it, as I've described before. The throat center here, interpenetrating from the, but generally speaking, esoterically, the centers are regarded as going down the back of the spine. So the throat center, the back of the neck, the heart center between the shoulder blades, the solar plexus center a bit lower in the lumbar area, just above the sacral center, of course, sacral chakra, and then there's the base chakra. So at 21 years of age, the centers reach the same expression as at the close of the previous life. This is very interesting because in our 3 times 7 year cycles, in any incarnation, those first 3 times 7 cycles that equal 21 years, we recapitulate or we re-engage the quality of the vehicles with which we left the last life, the etheric physical, the astral, the mental. And so 21 years is interesting as it's a so-called legal age. It's when we come of age. It's when we're maybe doing higher education at university or something like that. And it corresponds to the mental body phase of personality integration. So these chakras are in 5 basic states. They're either closed, but with no signs of life, or opening, faintly tinged with colour, quickened, alive, alert in 2 directions, radiant, reaching forth with vibrant note to all related centers, blended, working rhythmically with others. The chakras transmit energy from the higher planes and transform it into an acceptable voltage in our etheric consciousness. So it's interesting to consider energy as electricity because they are frequencies that can be measured. And likewise at point 4 here, the radiant, reaching forth with a vibrant note. And when a person's energy centers are unfolding, just like the seed that is being brought forth out of the ground every spring, so the devas respond to those sounds and build in more refined substance into the etheric body of the individual concerned. So we have minor chakras as well. They're not so much about consciousness, but act as distributing points for energies to do with the physiology and functioning of the physical body. And so we have a diagram to the right here, which isn't quite accurate. It has the major and minor chakras. It gives you an idea of where they are. 2 in the palms of the hands, 2 at the back of each knee, 1 above the heart center, the so-called vagus nerve in the neck, 2 above the breasts, 1 either side, 1 in the spleen, superimposed upon the physical spleen, 2 above the kidneys, 1 below the throat where the breastbones meet near the thyroid gland, 2 in the soles of the feet, 2 behind the eyes near the thymus gland, 1 in the liver, close to the liver, 1 near the stomach, related to the solar plexus, of course, 2 for the gonads and the ovaries and testes, 2 in front of the ears where the jawbone connects. Fascinating. And there are various books about the minor chakras. One that comes to mind is Melvin Artby's book, 1,000 Points of Light, where he goes into the minor chakras. So we have 21 minor chakras, or 22 including the spleen. There are also many tiny centers that correspond. Can you turn your cameras off, please? Thank you. There are also many tiny centers that correspond to the acupuncture points, the so-called 343 points of light, plus 22 minor centers equals 365, which of course is the days of the year. So you'll find all these kind of correspondences in esotericism. And here we have the map, of course, of the acupuncture points in the body. So you can see just how extraordinarily complex and intricate the science of the centers is. And when you get into it even deeper, you'll see that there are various triangular or geometrical formations between the centers, many different configurations, which in itself really just expands the science incredibly broadly. So on my website, this table is taken from esotericastrologer.org, one of the many tables on the rays. And just to show you that the rays, of course, are ruled by planets, Pluto and Vulcan, for instance, the first ray, Sun, Jupiter, the second ray, etc. But those planets also are the co-rulers of the corresponding chakra associated with that ray. So Pluto, Vulcan are associated with the crown chakra, although other planets are as well, such as Uranus. Sun, Jupiter rule the second ray, but they are definitely the co-rulers of the heart center. Earth and Saturn, rulers of the third ray, and are the rulers of the throat and thyroid gland. So the chakra of the gland, you can find these tables on my website if you want to print them out. And of course, there are colors and jewels associated with these rays and planets, centers, I should say. And the centers work in pairs. We're continually raising the energies up here from these arrows I'm circling here with my mouse, from the lower centers to the higher centers over many lifetimes. First ray relates to the base chakra and the crown chakra, the expression of the will. The base down here, crown up here. The second ray, solar plexus to heart, solar plexus here, up to the heart, unfolding the love nature. And the third ray, the sacral to the throat, sacral here, throat here, and the ajna, in fact, developing the mind and creative activity. So we're at all various stages of repolarizing these forces from the lower centers to the higher centers over many, many lifetimes. And of course, we can speed the process up through meditation, visualization, and so forth. But we can't force the raising of those energies, particularly, of course, the Kundalini from the base chakra that has to unfold of its own natural volition. So you'll find this diagram in a lot of my newsletters. It's always handy to repeat this information just for ready reference to ponder on, reference, I should say, to ponder on and reflect upon. Crown chakra. Okay, so we'll go through the 7 major centers. This is but one representation of the crown chakra, the 1,000-petal lotus. It corresponds, they say, to the central spiritual sun, and only really functions properly after the 3rd degree initiation, which of course is a very advanced, exalted stage of consciousness that pretty much precedes pretty quickly the liberation of a human being. And the crown is related to the triple personality, mental, emotional, and physical, via the Antakarana, the rainbow bridge of light. The crown center, of course, is related to Shambhala, the father, the will. Again, you'll find all these triplicities that are the bedrock of learning esotericism. The triplicities and the septenaries are your foundational patterns that you can associate and cross-associate. And the crown chakra relates to electric fire or purpose. Again, we have this electricity factor. And so the pineal gland is the physical externalization of the crown chakra, which is active at infancy and establishes the will to be. And I think that's what is meant by that active at infancy means that before the pulsation can be seen between the in the fontanelle part of the skull before the bones move together and close up. It's like a pulsing that can be seen. And of course, the crown chakra is active at a much later stage of evolution. It's the organ of synthesis placed in, above, and around the head with an extensive radiation of great beauty and dynamic effectiveness. So I guess the crown that is placed on the head of a king or a queen is representative of this will to rule, if you like, that carries the purpose that suited human evolution over a period of time in terms of monarchies of advanced souls who ruled over the unawakened masses. Of course, now the masses are waking up and monarchies will be replaced by democracies. Not that we have any functioning proper democracies yet, but that is where we're working towards. So the gentleman I mentioned before, Arthur Avalon, a writer from the early 20th century, sticks pretty much to the traditional Hindu system. He was a classic kind of Victorian scholar, and he has some great books. The Serpent Power is one of them. I think these diagrams are from the Serpent Power. So we have chakra depicted here. We have the crown chakra. You can't actually see in this very well the petals depicted on the skull here. We have the ajna center, the throat center, the heart center, the solar plexus, the sacral, and the base. And we'll get into these in more detail. In fact, already the Ajna Center, which I feature quite often on my newsletters when I'm discussing the astrological interaction with the Ajna Center, it has 96 petals and 2 lobes. It's the most fascinating center. It's an extension. It has an extension to the sacral and throat centers, hence is related to Scorpio. Scorpio is the 8th sign, and when you multiply 8 times 12 zodiac signs, you get 96, which is the number of petals of the Ajna. 2 times 48 petals, in fact, 48 petals on either side. 48 petals on this side, 48 petals on this side. The Ajna expresses the idea behind creation. It's fully active by the 3rd degree, initiation, and is a distribution organ for spiritual energies. And it's related to the 3rd eye, but it isn't the 3rd eye per se. It has an intimate relation to the 2 physical eyes. In advanced people, the Ajna Center is the organ of synthesis for the personality. And that can mean people who are not necessarily spiritually advanced, who may not even have taken the first initiation. It can be those people, though, can have a very powerful Ajna Center and hence be a so-called selfish personality, because the Ajna distributes those energies before soul fusion. So the Ajna has a dual role before the probationary path. When we get put on probation when we're entering the Master's ashram as such. So the left eye or the left lobe represents manas, and after the 3rd degree initiation, the right eye or buddhi. Manas, mind, buddhi, intuition. And they also symbolize the left or right hand paths, the 2 arms of the cross of crucifixion. Because the left eye or the left hand path can represent the overuse of manas, the selfish use of manas to the exclusion of buddhi or intuition, which is related to the heart. So the Ajna embodies the idealism in its capacity to embody an idea behind the creative activity of the throat center, hence its connection with the throat. The Ajna fuses the creative throat and the true love of the heart, the sublimated desire from the solar plexus. So the Ajna relates to the throat in its creative aspect, to the solar plexus in its imaginative capacity, and to the heart in its inclusive faculty, and to the crown center, in fact, in its potential to become. So it's a very mysterious mediating center, and the left lobe, manas, is ruled by Venus. The right eye, or the right lobe, is ruled by Mercury. And so, as I've said in my newsletter several times, here we have the divine hermaphrodite, the unification of mind and buddhi, Hermes, Mercury, Aphrodite, Venus, hermaphrodite. Of course, we can explore also these various Sanskrit symbols that are depicted in the chakras. I think this one is just simply the Om symbol here. But as I said, there are many, many depictions of the centers. That's why I try and stick to the traditional Hindu one. But there are many artworks like this one here that you're looking at that vary. The Ajna is an organ for distribution of spiritual energies. The pituitary gland is the endocrine gland associated with the Ajna. Pituitary gland produces hormones which stimulate the endocrine secretion of other glands. So when the pituitary is underactive, then there are problems with the rest of the glands. Hence, that makes the pituitary somewhat of the master endocrine gland. Apparently, tumours in the pituitary gland are now common, reflecting the rapidly developing personalities of the race who are becoming integrated personalities. And this goes for all different stages of unfoldment in terms of health issues with different parts of the body or organs associated with different chakras. For instance, the stomach and the solar plexus, or the liver, spleen, all the organs around the solar plexus can be affected. Health of the pituitary relates to migraines, the ears, the autonomic nervous system, and some of them are temporary because of the developing relation of the ajna to the crown center. And so in the Egyptian tradition, you have these very beautiful emblems on the forehead that I'm sure relate to the awakening of the third eye, depicted by the serpent here and this bird creature here. You'll probably find many different essays, in fact, on the web about various people's esoteric interpretation of these symbols. Serpent of wisdom, perhaps relating to Buddhi, and the bird-like creature may relate to Manas. So the pituitary gland has been called the gland of persistent effort and was known to the initiated priests of antiquity who associated it with the feminine aspect in symbolism. It's sort of as the yoni, or the female genitals, in relationship to the pineal gland, which was the primitive lingam or phallus. In the legends of the Egyptian Isis, the Hindu Radha and the Christian Virgin Mary, the functions of the gland are intimated. The pituitary body is the barometer of the whole gland chain, first to reveal disorder in the endocrine system. In the Egyptian mysteries, the pituitary body, or Isis, was the initiator, for it raised the candidate to the pineal gland, or Ra. And this is from Mammy Palmer Hall's book called Man, a brilliant book, fascinating one that's a must-have on your bookshelf or on your tablet. So, enough of the asana. I mean, you could write a book literally on each of these chakras, the endocrine gland, the functions of both, their interaction with the other centers, and the etheric body with consciousness. It's really quite an extraordinary science. It's one of the sub-sciences, Laya Yoga, of esoteric astrology, which is regarded as the science of all sciences. So we come to the throat chakra, and here's the traditional Hindu version here. You have 16 petals around the outside. We have an elephant holding various deities. I think we've got Shiva over here with his trident, breathing out fire. Various serpents and instruments and skulls and so forth, and one or two Sanskrit letters. So just deciphering that in itself would be an interesting exercise to see the traditional Hindu unpacking of that entire glyph, because a picture tells 1,000 words, does it not? So this chakra is located between the 7th cervical vertebrae and the 1st thoracic, behind the spine, behind the back of the neck, from the medulla oblongata down to the top of the shoulder blades, and it is ruled by Saturn. The throat chakra, of course, is the seat of the mind, the mental plane. And so around this center are the organs of speech: the throat, the mouth, the tongue, the larynx, the bronchial, the upper lungs, the lymphatics, the shoulders, the arms, the hands are all associated. And you can see the association with various astrology signs here too, of course. Taurus, which rules the neck and the organs of speech. Gemini, that rules the arms and hands. And when we're thinking and talking to other people, Some people wave their arms around a lot, or their hands for expression that corresponds with the idea that they're trying to express. So you can see many of those kind of interactions. Of course, the thyroid gland is a really major important gland in the body, and governs the metabolic functions of the body by which food is built up into living so-called protoplasm, and where protoplasm is broken down through a system called catabolism, not cannibalism, catabolism, into simpler compounds with the exchange of energy. The throat is connected by the throat center is connected by a triangle to the two minor clavicles or breast chakras used by healers for lymphatic drainage, and forms triads with other minor centers, as I've said before. So we're getting really just a very, compared to the depth you can go into this subject, a superficial first ploughing of the field, if you like, on the chakras. Another representation of the throat center. The green, I think, is an appropriate color for the throat. It's quite often depicted as the color for the heart, but I think indigo is more appropriate. Green is the color of the third ray, which Saturn rules, and Saturn rules the throat center. So with health, with the throat center, we have respiratory infections, breathing problems. This is interesting in light of the last 3 years of flu and COVID. What's the word? Intensification. And in terms of the developing, unfolding consciousness of humanity as a whole, which, as I said before, or I will say later as well, represents the throat center of the three planetary centers: Shambhala, hierarchy, humanity. So respiratory infections, breathing problems, dental decay, tonsils, asthma, bronchitis, thyroid issues. Excess activity, you have toxic goiter, weight loss, blood pressure, nervousness, overactive or ill-directed mind. The remedy, meditate. Meditation is the medication. The throat is the main function, the creative outlet. For the aspirant, in the initial stage, life stage, for an aspirant on the path, there's a transfer of energy from the sacral to the throat center, and hence the disciplines of diet, celibacy, exercise, and so forth. And some lives where the sacral centers are temporarily suppressed, and this exchange of energy from the sacral to the throat can be a real burning ground for many spiritual teachers or gurus that are tested in the right use of sex. The artist here is Dirk Zarnota. You can find his many, many beautiful paintings and yantras, which are these geometrical Hindu patterns online. But of course, anti-corona building is only possible, we are told, when energies are repolarized to the throat. The neck is a symbol of the anti-corona, in fact, between the head and the body, obviously. So hypothyroidism is where the energy of the throat is sluggish and insufficient, in contrast to a creative person. But hyperthyroidism represents overactivity. So we have a relationship between mental creativity and the capacity to assimilate. And the hormone, of course, is thyroxine, which is also the name of the drug that many people, in fact, take these days to stabilize the thyroid, particularly for women going through menopause. There can be a destabilization that can last from months to years. There's also, I think, the diagnosis of Hashimoto's, as I recall, which is a similar thing. So in the menopause, the in women again, the coming into the croning years is recognized where the energies are repolarized from the sacral center. Um, it doesn't mean that the sex life stops, but the reproduction basically um, uh, doesn't take place any further, even though some women are giving birth in their 60s and 70s now. um, but generally speaking, there is that evolutionary trend after the age of 40, 42, for the energies to repolarize from the sacral to the throat, from the procreative to the creative, as I've mentioned many times. Um, and people take up, after they've finished, for instance, raising children, having a family, maybe getting a divorce or having a new relationship, take up studies and start to, go and get a degree at university or something like that. That's a fairly common thing, and is representative of those sacral energy forces moving up to the throat. In creative women, they have more meaningful, well-adjusted sexual relationships than those with undeveloped chakras. So we have the diagram here on the left taken from the Tibetan books, the monad, first aspect, the soul, and the personality, the three triangles. Soul, the cause of body, expressing itself through three aspects of the mind, the personality reflecting the threefold soul, and so forth. And the antakarana that is being built. Most people building the antakarana between the personality and the soul, and a much smaller percentage of people starting to build the antakarana between the soul and the monad. So the Saturn cycle at the age of 42, the so-called midlife crisis. Saturn, as I said, rules the throat center, and the Saturn opposition, that is Saturn opposite your natal Saturn in the horoscope, represents this repolarizing of opposites from the sacral to the throat. It's also Uranus opposition Uranus at that time, half of an 84-year cycle, which is 42. Uranus and Saturn cycles are very closely calibrated. Uranus rules the sacral center, and so quite often, particularly in males that are going through the midlife crisis after having a family and being married for 20 or 25 years, start to have affairs with younger women and prove themselves sexually all over again, to reclaim their youth, so to speak. Because for males as well, the energy is moving from the sacral to the throat, and hence the higher creativity is being activated as well. Humanity, as I said, is the throat center of the Logos. Here we have the spiritual centers of planet Earth. Shambhala, hierarchy, humanity, the unique of the world service, of course. The thinkers and scientists down here. And we've seen an unprecedented growth of the mental faculty in the past 40 years, but particularly in the last 600 years since the Renaissance in 1425, which in fact was the beginning of the cycle of the third ray of active intelligence. So this third ray cycle is still very strong. In fact, we're in a third ray of a third ray of a third ray cycle at the moment, wheels within wheels. And hence the techno revolution, radio, TV, satellite, computers. Uranus, of course, is associated with the third ray or third aspect in terms of invention, innovation, technology, and works closely with Saturn that structures the Uranian ideas. So the throat expresses mental creation and is related to respiration. Excuse me, I almost swallowed my sweet. Which respiration, of course, breathing brings oxygen to the brain which is the hardware for the mental body software. And so we have in-breathing and out-breathing. We breathe in ideas, we assimilate, and we exhale. Of course, the breathing process is very important in pranayama, in hatha yoga, but also in meditation to actually vitalize the etheric body before meditation. The throat is the organ of the creative word Om, and used correctly can be very healing. Sounding the Om correctly. And the third ray of the throat is related to magic. Manifesting an idea is magic, and many different levels, of course. And it's related to the development of thought forms. Uranus rules the seventh ray of ceremonial magic and also rules the sacral center, which has a dynamic interaction with the throat center ruled by Saturn. So the throat center is about mental creativity, breathing out of thought forms. Globally, it has increased in the positive, negative use of magic. Excuse me. Modern advertising, for instance, selfishly oriented, and also, of course, propaganda that we've seen, particularly in the last several years. The misuse of the mind, misuse of the sacral center. So there's a triangle between the sacral, heart, and throat centers. If flowing correctly, creative activity is brought about in response to group need. Of course, the sacral is also related to the spleen center in terms of that raw prana that we get from the atmosphere, from the sun. The heart chakra, one of the most important, obviously. 12 petals, as you can see, which relate to the 12 signs of the zodiac and many other types of 12s. Between the shoulder blades and is rapidly unfolding in humanity. It corresponds to the heart of the sun, which Neptune rules over. Neptune also, as the god of the waters, rules the cosmic bloodstream that pours through the heart. The heart center comes into functional activity after the second degree emotion, but of course well before that as well. We're talking about really powerful expression after the second degree. But before the first initiation and between the first and second initiations, the heart center is starting to unfold. The heart distributes the energy of hierarchy via the hearts of aspirants, disciples, and initiates. It has a magnetic radiatory power essential for world reconstruction. Living in the heart, living in that quiet place of stillness, peace, of timelessness, in fact. And you'll note that there's the six-pointed Star of David in the center of this circle. It's, of course, a much more ancient symbol than the Star of David from the Hindu system. We can see the interlacing triangles as being the up-pointed triangle of the personality and the down-pointing triangle of the spirit. The spirit and matter joined, synthesized, with a seventh point in the middle. And there is a deer in this particular chakra, or a gazelle, and it has certain significance. And of course, these various Sanskrit letters around each petal. All petals of the heart chakra. And of course, here is the physical heart beating away. This is a fantastic Giphy showing the electrical discharge of the heart. It pumps continuously, 24/7. marvelous to behold. And of course, its 4 ventricles, which has an esoteric correspondence that Manly Palmer Hall discusses in his book, Man. And of course, interacts with the etheric electricity within the body. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, but it's only possible when the mental body is adequately developed. And so when people say feeling in the heart, it can be confused with thinking. The ability to think in the heart can only happen after the solar plexus energies have been raised to the heart, which of course can take many lifetimes. But we're talking relatively speaking here, not completely and utterly thinking in the heart. Thinking as a result of correct feeling is then substituted for personal sensitivity. Interesting. As the Tibetan is continually reminding us about the moving from being emotional beings, being overwhelmed by our tsunamis of emotion, to being thinking beings, but not being unfeeling at the same time, integrating the feeling nature but not being ruled by it. The heart registers the energies of love and is the agent for spiritual love, or buddhi, which we discussed before as the right petal of the Ajna chakra. Now, the thymus, I mentioned before, is associated with the heart, the endocrine gland is associated with the heart. Before I go on with that, someone's just in the chat here. Agnieszka, can't pronounce that properly. I think Leadbeater was warning about stimulating sacral chakra to something, I can't read it, there's something blocking that. Kundalini rising, and his pictures were concentrating on the spleen chakra. Yeah, possibly. That's right. His book on the chakras. But that one word is blocked by some little pop-up thing here. I can't read it. So this is the location of thymus gland between the lungs. Here's a more detailed drawing. Thyroid gland here, the trachea here. You can see how intricate and interrelated all these glands and organs are. Here's a blow-up of the thymus. The thyroid's up here, the thymus is here. So it goes down to the top of the stomach by the looks of things. There's a right lobe and left lobe, and there's all sorts of details within that. So really quite extraordinary. And they wrap themselves around the trachea, the breath, where the breathing takes place. Fascinating. Anyway, an overactive thymus gland can represent someone who's irresponsible or amoral. And apparently the hormone release from the thymus is not fully understood yet. As humanity becomes responsible, the thymus will become correctly active and promotes goodwill. I mentioned in my last newsletter a piece about the thymus gland, about how Gemini rules the thymus gland and how Gemini people can be retain that kind of childlike nature right into their old age. They can stay young, so to speak. So it's a very interesting, mysterious, in fact, like all the other glands, function that it has. It's an organ, the heart itself is an organ of fusion. The head is related to synthesis. And when the heart becomes active, one is drawn into the master's ashram. One has access to the soul ray, or the understanding of what one's soul ray is, and becomes an accepted disciple. The heart gives close rapport with the soul, hence the teaching from the master who represents the heart of the ashram. Of course, the ashram itself is an energy center or a chakra. 49 ashrams that exist within the greater ashram of the Christ are all energy centers, as is, of course, the Christ ashram, which is the hierarchy. It's the heart center of the planet, made up of 49 lesser centers. And with the heart being active, one is drawn into close service relationship with humanity, a sense of responsibility due to heart activity. And Irina is saying, thymus is the center of immunity, okay? Developed thymus is a guarantee of all sorts of one's protection beyond imagination on the levels, of course, of one's evolution. Rachel says, yes. Irina says, yes. Everyone's saying, yes, perfect, yes. All right. Sorry about that. I got some spam phone call and it kicked me off my internet connection. So I'll have to block that in the future. All right. So we come to the heart lotus per se, which is this diagram here is taken from the Tibetan books, but it's been colorized by someone. You can see the 12 or the 9 petals of the knowledge, love, and sacrifice petals surrounding the 3 petals at the core of the lotus, which open at the very last moment before liberation. And so over many lifetimes, I think I've touched on this in other classes, we unfold these petals, the knowledge petals. We have, for instance, knowledge, love, knowledge, sacrifice. We have love, knowledge, love, sacrifice. There's different combinations. In other words, all the petals are represented in each single petal, and we unfold these over a period of many, many lifetimes. Many of advanced humanity, well, not necessarily initiates, but powerful personalities, have unfolded the 5th petal of the heart chakra. More advanced have unfolded the 6th, 7th, 8th petals, and so forth, depending on what initiation you're at. So the 3 times 3 petals represent the knowledge, love, and sacrifice, the KLS, the central bud, the jewel, Sun, Jupiter rule over that. Problems associated with the awakening heart produces turmoil and is most common in living relationships and the heart solar plexus interplay. The interplay of love with forces of desire, wild devotion, and also utmost hate. And so there are frequent relationships, disruption, reconciliation, difficulties of the rhythmic cycle of life. So this is a huge thing today in the world, where there are many more single people and at the same time where people are exploring various relationships. And in relationship, we see the dweller fella arises within each person, is triggered by the other person, and the other person gets to see their dweller reflected back at them, and hence the conflicts and battles that can be part of the relationship theme. The heart blood is historically related to the toxins of imperil. They can, one can be poisoned by one's own emotions of hatred, for instance, and equally if the heart is open, love enters the space. The heart symbolically represents or defines the pulsating life of the soul, the outgoing, withdrawing, the dual life of the disciple, the rhythm of the inner and outer life. Michael Robbins has done some excellent analyses or commentaries on the heart center, which you can find on makara.us website, MAKARA. A lot of beautiful resources there that you can find, and many commentaries on all the so-called blue books. So we just touch on it briefly today. superficially. So we get to the solar plexus, probably as important to know about as the heart in many ways, because we all have solar plexus issues in terms of controlling the emotional body. Just as the mental body is anchored at the throat chakra, so the emotional body or astral body is anchored in the solar plexus, which has 10 petals, 10 the number of perfection, a good number to represent or symbolize the perfection of control of the emotions. And of course, when you add the 10 petals of the solar plexus to the 12 petals of the heart, we get the 22, number 22, the power number of the tarot. So it represents perfection, and also the 10th sign, Capricorn, which in fact is incidentally called Makara, the mystery of Makara, the website I just mentioned. The solar plexus is regarded as a clearinghouse for all the lower centers, major and minor, ruled by Neptune and Mars, the god of the waters and the god of war. And there is the war or the conflict in the solar plexus I was just talking about in terms of relationships, in terms of relationship with oneself. There's always some conflict to resolve or fire to put out, so to speak. When the war of conflicting emotions is won in the solar plexus, Mars has been conquered and Neptune rules. Neptune is the higher light, is regarded as the higher light of the solar plexus. In fact, that light that embryonic interplay that we talk about in the meditation every week is ruled by Mars and Neptune. Mars is the already well-established light that we've had for thousands of incarnations. Neptune is what we're developing, because Neptune is a sacred planet, Mars is a non-sacred planet, and Neptune is like the bridge from the solar plexus to the heart. So the emotions represent the element water, the outlet of the astral body ruled over by Neptune, the god of the waters. And of course the personality is a reflection of the heart of the sun, or the heart, solar. Humanity is focused in the solar plexus mainly, and of course solar plexus control is vital is the vital goal for the aspirant, to transmute desire into aspiration. The solar plexus receives all emotional reactions, desire impulses. The solar plexus is the most separative of the centers, in that it embodies the lower mind, the animal brain, and therefore kama manas, or desire mind. It's regarded as the abdominal brain or the animal brain, and is the fifth center counting from above down. So it relates to the symbolism of 5 in the mind. Because it stands midway between the throat and the heart and above the diaphragm and the sacral base below the diaphragm. So it's a very, very much the grand central station of chakras, of synthesizing all the energies of the lower centers before raising them up to the heart. And we can, of course, do that in our individual meditations, in terms of draining the swamp every day of all the sludge that is built up in our everyday lives. That does work. You can literally visualize the swamp being drained and all the excess gross that you may have accumulated during your everyday activity being continually raised to the heart and being burnt in the fiery furnace or chalice of the heart. We'll go for another 5 minutes and finish off the solar plexus. There's a couple more pages in the solar plexus. Here we have another picture of the solar plexus and the other energy centers as depicted by various people. In the solar plexus, the yellow sun, solar, as in the sun, although technically it's really the heart that the sun rules. I guess in more ancient times, the solar plexus was more appropriate for relating to the sun. And its connections to pretty much every other chakra in the body. So in the etheric, the solar plexus in the etheric is where humanity lives, conditioned by desire. Most mediums and clairvoyants function in the solar plexus because they simply tap into the astral nature of their clients and reflect back to them what they automatically connect up with. Yeah, solar plexus is the most disturbing center because of stomach complaints, liver, constant turmoil for the average person, emotion, balancing the pairs of opposites upon the astral plane essentially, and that can take many lifetimes, and hence the various ailments associated with that center in the region of that center. Solar plexus gathers in all lower energies, then redirects to the higher centers. Solar plexus to heart, force, sacral to throat, base to head. Pancreas is the endocrine gland, as you can see here in the picture, associated with the solar plexus. The liver, the pancreas, the stomach are fed by the solar plexus, and understanding this will lead to true healing. I mentioned Steve Jobs here because he died of pancreatic cancer, and he had a well-known, pretty volatile temper. And I talk about that in one of my articles. You can find on my website about Steve Jobs, in fact. Moon in Aries, I believe, yeah, very fiery. The 10 petals of the solar plexus reach towards the heart in that original diagram I showed you at the beginning. So humanity is striving upwards from the solar plexus continually. Solar plexus is a gateway to the heart, but it is not the heart per se, as many people think. Many people think that emotion is love, for instance, and there's a difference, obviously. So the transference of solar plexus to the heart can cause some serious difficulties. Many advanced people die of heart disease, and we're talking here like even the boss or the head of a big corporation. Whether you may regard that person as spiritual or not, their heart energy anchors for all the employees of that company, and that's one of the reasons why many of them die of heart disease. So I have about another 8 slides to go, but what I'll do is go through them just now so that you can read them at your own pace. You can read about the sacral, and you can pause the video at each page and read at your leisure, or download the pictures at your leisure, okay? Talking about the Kundalini, the base chakra, and so forth. Krishnamurti, did you hypothesize his cause of death, his initiatory process in your analysis? Yes, in my book, Initiation of Krishnamurti, I did. He died of liver cancer, I believe. So I do comment about that in my book, but I can't remember what I said now. You can go and explore in your own time the remaining lower centers. Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it.